Daniel. You know, if
No way.
if I don't show you the views, then it's going to be like,
If you do this, we're done. Ah.
So yeah, first time I've been here, it's like.
Whereabouts are you?
In Alcudia. So it's in Spain. First time we've been here, to be fair.
Is it mainland Spain?
You know what? It's in Mallorca, if that means anything. I'm ready.
Mallorca. Yeah, Mallorca. The Balearics. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's nice. The first time, we normally go to Greece.
Head down to Port Andrax.
Port Andrax, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome little spot.
Yeah, good stuff. So you've been there a few times then?
And I used to, before I had kids, I used to go there on one weekend a month.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I had a friend of mine who had a castle built into the side of the mountain in Port Andrax.
Oh, nice. Welcome to the podcast. This is the podcast. So it's called the Business Mentor Podcast. So I wanted to get you on, Daniel. I've read your books. I've even bought one with me. Look at that. That's commitment for you.
Yeah, I'm on holiday with you.
Yeah, great book. So, you know, I've read quite a few. So, look, for my audience who don't know much about you, I'm sure they do, but, you know, you've done 4 books. You might have done 5, but I've just got 24 assets, key person of influence, oversubscribe, entrepreneur revolution. You know, to write them books is one thing, but I think the content, as an entrepreneur myself of 20 years, I just love what you put in there. So actually a book with so much value that you can take away and use straight away. So I want to thank you for doing that for everybody anyway.
My pleasure.
But just a bit about your story, because, you know, I've read about your story, but, you know, for people who have not known about your story, just fill us in, Daniel, of you know, about your past and how you got to where you are. And we'll go back round again.
So a quick fly through from 19 to 21, I was very lucky to have a great mentor who I worked for. I was employee number 3 in a new venture that he set up. And within 2 years, we had 60 employees and 7 or 8 million of revenue. So I got the opportunity to sit through the whole growth of those first 2 years from startup to multi-million revenue. Because I was 19, I deliberately made myself available for anything at all that he wanted to get done. So if he needed to be dropped off at the airport, I would do that. If he wanted me to fold envelopes and put stamps on letters, I remember doing thousands of direct mail stamps and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So absolutely everything. We wrote copy, we created packages, we did sales and customer service. So I was really across a huge section of the business for that whole growth journey. And then when I was 21 years old, amazingly, when I look back at it now, I felt ready to go out in competition with him. Wow. We had a little bit of a head-to-head about a couple of issues, and he made an offhand remark where he said, Daniel, if you want some shares in this business, why don't you go start your own business? And I went, well, okay, fair enough. I'm going to go start my own business. So I did. At 21, I went and launched my own company. I emulated what I'd seen before, and I grew a very fast growth company. So we went from 0 to $1 million in the first year, or about 1.3 million. And then we grew up to a 10.7 million worth of sales in year 4. And it was very fast growth. So before the age of 25, we'd gotten to $1 million a month in sales. And it was just an innovative marketing agency, very focused on just a couple of clients and taking a stake in their success and taking a commission on everything that we sold. So I was able to do a deal to get out of that business. And then I came to the UK. I set up an events business where we ran events, launching speakers into the UK market. The recession hit. My business was hit pretty hard. I tried to sell it. I couldn't sell it. And I got some pretty pathetic offers. And one of the things I discovered when I tried to sell it was that I hadn't really built an asset. So I was really, really good at sales and marketing. Yeah. For my first 10 years, I would describe us as, you know, cutting edge, world-class, aggressive sales and marketing, you know, very successful businesses at the sales and marketing side, but we didn't know anything about turning that into an asset. So from about 2010 onwards, I focused very heavily on understanding balance sheet assets and understanding off-balance sheet assets. And I actually changed my strategy, built a very valuable company. Today we run in Australia and Singapore and UK, USA, Canada. I have a ventures business that has a stake in about a dozen companies. Inside the group of companies that we own is film production, book publishing, IT services, technology, and training and development for entrepreneurs. So we employ about 50 people today. And yeah, along the way, I've written the books, and essentially the books, I'll tell you, the main reason I write the books is it's a way for me to capture all my learnings and to get everything that's in my head. I've discovered that if I take everything out of my head and if I don't hold back and I put everything into a book, it frees me up to have new ideas. Yeah. So when you put something in a book, it basically allows you to relax about that idea, and it gives you the space to have new ideas. So I brain dump into the book. So that's how come I've written the 4 books as well as wanting to support the entrepreneur journey.
Yeah, I like that, because I read that bit about, dumping yourself. And I will write a book at some point, but podcasting for me is kind of writing them chapters anyway. Yeah. We're like 71, I think, in at the moment. And the funny thing is this, that you're probably the same. When you go back to your book and you read something and you think, wow, that's amazing content. I go to my podcast and I think sometimes we're probably our worst enemy, right? I sometimes think my content isn't on point, and someone sends a message, Jay, that really helped. I listened to an old podcast. I thought, was that really me? That's brilliant content. So I totally get that concept of brain dumping, because it clears your mind. Just going on your business, what was the business that you built up? What was it in? Because a lot of the listeners probably not read your book. So
it's a little bit complicated, because it was very, very niche. But in the early days, essentially we would do event marketing, event roadshows. Okay. So what I would do is I would find someone who was a very good educator, very good speaker, author, who wasn't good at putting bums on seats at events, right? Yeah. And I would take over the whole sales and marketing side of the event. But the unique thing is that I would spend my own money, and I would make the sales, and we would basically take a big percentage of the commission. Now, in the early days, we would sell training programs for $2,500 packages. And then I discovered that the same method, the same approach would work for selling franchises. So I went to the franchise show and I found one franchise that I was really inspired by, that I really loved. And I did a deal with them that I would roadshow their franchises across Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane and build them a franchisee network. But I would take as much as 70% of the franchise fee, depending on sales volumes. Yeah. So on the first few sales, it was low, but as we crossed the $1 million mark and then the $2 million mark, we were earning up to 70% of the franchise fees. And it was a very, very successful, very lucrative business, which ultimately they wanted to bring that function back in-house, which was good for us, right? Yeah. So it was really it was very niche. It's not as simple as saying a fish and chip shop or a recruitment business or something like that people understand. We focused on doing a particular deal and basically delivering sales and marketing results through events.
Yeah, I like that, because when I saw my business, because I'm good at sales and marketing, that's, recruitment's quite a tough industry. People were asking me to join them, sell for them. And I did it for a little while, and then obviously I changed the model. But I get that concept, because if you're very good at sales and marketing and you've got the machine, you can take anything from this to that, Gary Vee talks about, in fact, Gary Vee is actually doing that now with his Vaynermedia. He's taking an existing brand and putting a machine behind that. Yeah. That's an asset you want to keep hold of.
Exactly. So rather than being like a gun for hire and doing fees and all that sort of stuff, we would pick one thing and just focus heavily on promoting it and building it up. And we made money through the deal, through the actual growing and scaling of something that we would work.
Awesome. And I want to go on the branding bit, because obviously we're going to go different angles, because I've got so much stuff I want to cover. But, the key, the influence, but key person of influence, a book that really I started reading initially. And I totally got it, because I'm always about brand. And you talk a lot about being someone of value, in a sense, someone that people, because there's lots of people doing, mini-me's, if that makes sense. Talk a bit about that reason behind the key person of influence and why people should do that in an industry with so much noise.
Yeah. So think less about brand for a moment, and let's just go back to an original concept, which is very simple. In every industry, in every niche, there is 1 to 5% of the people in that niche are the top performers, and they make all the money. So even in the UK economy, the top 5% of earners in the UK economy pay 50% of the taxes, which basically means that they're earning extraordinary amounts of money. If you're in the top 5%, it's never been better. This is the best time in history to be in the top 5%, probably since the age of Rome, right? So this is the people who are digitally leveraged, who are known for something. They're the name recognized person within a particular industry. Those people are the key people of influence, and all the deals go through them. So if you're Gary Vaynerchuk, let's say, then anyone who's thinking about launching a social media related business, and they want to be in New York and they want to be in London, and the first name that pops into their mind is Gary Vaynerchuk. So what happens is that, because I used to work with people like Gary quite a lot, you see behind the scenes, they get 100 opportunities a day. Every single day, hundreds of people are sending them great opportunities. And when you see great opportunities, when you see hundreds of opportunities, you actually become numb to them. You become bored with opportunities, and you become so complacent that only the best opportunities start to stand out. So what happens is that basically you get 100 opportunities a day, 500 opportunities a week.
Yeah.
And then once a month, something looks like a great opportunity and you go, oh, I really want to get involved in that. So you become this magnet for really great opportunities, and then suddenly you've got the pick of the opportunities. So this is what it is to be a key person of influence. So you have to position yourself as a key person of influence for something, so that you're the go-to person for opportunities relating to that space. Now, it might be, in the early days, it might be recruitment in, leads or something like that. It could, but so long as you can be the go-to person for something and then expand upon that thing. Now, people talk about personal brand, and it leads them down this annoying path of, I've got to have, branding, and I've got to have like this kind of like persona, and I've got to have all these followers and all that sort of stuff. All of that's great as noise, but what matters more is that you're actually the key person of influence. You're actually the go-to person, that you are moving and shaking in a very small circle, and that people think of an opportunity and they come to you with it.
Yeah. And I want to relate to that, to an example myself. So when I started the podcast, I slipped into the business mentor because I used them, and then I did it for the Prince's Trust, did really well, went to Prince Charles, met him a few times because I was teaching entrepreneurs my skills. And I thought long about the podcast, the business mentor podcast. I never did any selling. I just thought, I'm going to put my content out there. As soon as I put a lead magnet at the end saying, if you want a 15-minute call, woof, all the calls kept coming in. And now we've set an academy. And the academy is not because I want loads of clients. I've got to put them somewhere. All these mentoring clients are asking me just because I'm putting my content out there.
Of course.
And in recruitment, the same thing. We were known for the 24-hour call. But yeah, you can over-brand yourself and look really good. In fact, there's a guy I mentor. He's now just reached 1 million Instagram followers. He's a magician, and we worked hard. And we had a conversation just before I left. I said, right, okay, we've done this now. Your brand's great. Now we need to build some assets, because there's a story about someone with 3.4 million Instagram and they can only sell 10 t-shirts.
Yeah, I saw that. This is what I call looking good, going nowhere. Too many people at the moment, they're focused on looking good, going nowhere. They're looking good, but they're not actually doing anything. They got no traction. And I'm completely not into that. So I'm all for branding. I'm all for, putting out 100 posts a day or whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah. Provided that you're actually positioning yourself as a genuine key person of influence at something. If you're spending so much time looking the part that you can't actually do the business, then that's counterproductive.
Yeah, and I think I was listening to David Goggins, who's a great guy. He just wrote a really good book. People will see behind the bullshit. Eventually, you'll get caught. You've got to have like somewhere to put your content, whether it's a book, a podcast, or YouTube now, because people need to see behind the hood. Yeah, so you can have a great car, but that's the engine going to go somewhere. You're not going to help people. Yeah. And I see so many people falling down, becoming public speakers, becoming brand experts, but really they're not talking about something of value.
They're trying to copy what they're seeing other people doing.
Yeah.
And what they're not doing is they're not leveraging their genuine value. So there's two parts to succeeding, which is number one, which is what you outwardly do, which is important.
Yeah.
Number two, it's leveraging the amount of value that you're on. So success takes, like proper success takes 15 years, 20 years, like to really build proper success. So if you're basically starting something brand new today, you're 10, 15, 20 years away from that being a proper success. You might have fluctuations up and down along the way, but you're 10, 15 years away. If you look at your last 15, 20 years and you figure out what is the really valuable IP that you've got, what is the valuable stories that you have, what is genuinely, the real deal stuff that you're sitting on that's of value to a lot of people. If you spend a lot of time digging deep in understanding what your last 15 years was about, then it comes naturally to you how to create value out there and how to share more value. So what people are doing is that they're in such a rush to go out and like share stuff with the world, but they're not honoring and respecting their last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and I like that. And the way you said 10 years, that resonates with me, because my first mentor, my recruitment company, we were making money along the way, and you have good months and bad months. And I can remember him telling me, just keep building this. And I don't know what happened, but 10 years was when we sold it. And, if you're selling a business, the best thing to have is entrepreneur's tax relief, right? Because you can pay 10%. But if I look at my journey, it was up and down, and 10 years was the actual number. Where you can really, because you can have quick wins and quick highs. You probably be able to build business.
Well, this is the thing. You look, when I tell my story about 0 to a million, 1 to 10, we were doing really well, but we had a lot of inefficiencies. We had a lot of employees on the team. It was crazy high, then crazy low, right? So we had a falling out with that particular supplier, and we did a deal to get out of there, and then we had to start again and build a new business, and that's why I went off. And so I was kind of like, my first 10 years was a roller coaster of highs and lows. It was pretty amazing, right? It was amazing. At 24, I bought a BMW X5, and I had a huge house, and I was traveling around, and I was doing all the things that most 24-year-olds would only dream of. I was always going to the best restaurants in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and I had a wonderful boom time. But then as I said, I couldn't sell the business, right? So there's something that happens over time and distance and experience, but it's about acknowledging and honoring your history and acknowledging the insights that you learn along the way.
Yeah, and I think mentors, the reason I'm passionate about mentoring is because it saved me in the recession. When the recession was happening, I didn't run a business in the prior recession. So, you don't know what to do, right? Everything's closing, jobs down. And the mentor played such an important part that I said, when I do sell the business, I will mentor. But assets, you're right. I changed my model from doing permanent recruitment to contract recruitment, because with contracts, you've got assets because the reoccurring revenue all the time. And someone's going to buy that. No one's going to buy a permanent recruitment business because you're only as good as your next job. And it's such a tough industry. And, with yourself, so I get the branding. Thank you for that. And then, during the years, you've trained so many entrepreneurs now, and we have this, listen to great stories. What have you learned? What have you learned from teaching all these? What is because a bit like you, when I talk to someone, and they're talking about business, I see the errors already happening. I'm like, no, you want to do this, you do that. Yeah. What are the key standouts for you?
So for starters, the business journey is incredibly predictable. So most people feel like they're carving their own path and they're doing this unique thing. It's very predictable. It goes from concept to wilderness. Yeah. So coming up with an idea, 1 or 2 people by themselves, trying to survive, trying to get head above water, 3 to 12 person boutique, trying to become influential, trying to get people to be the go-to people coming to you, then screwing it all up as you go from 12 to 50 employees, where I would call that the desert, which is this really frustrating, too big to be small, too small to be big, original team fighting with the new team, all those kind of things. and then performance business, about 40, 50 people up to 150 people, building a board, building a team of advisors, building an executive team, building 4 P&Ls, transitioning to recurring revenue and subscription revenue. So all of these predictable phases that happen along the way, they're very, very predictable.
Yeah.
And the assets that you need, the skill set that you need at each different phase. But I would define the journey as establishing value. So finding something that's valuable. And then secondly, becoming influential, becoming an influencer. And then thirdly, developing assets and building assets and formalizing assets. So it's 3 separate parts to the journey. Chapter 1 is the establishment of value. Chapter 2 is becoming influential. Chapter 3 is formalizing an asset that other people want. And it's basically, we need to go through those kind of stages in the journey. The other thing that I've learned, and this is a big one, is that until you're a key person of influence, nothing really works. And when you're a key person of influence, everything works. So Richard Branson, let's say he wants to fill an event. Well, he could just go on radio and that would fill an event. He could just dial in from the back of his Uber and do a 5-minute interview and that would fill an event. He could do some tweets and that would fill an event. He could ask some affiliates to do something for him and that would fill an event. He could take out an ad in the newspaper, that would work. He could do some Instagram stories and that would work. So when you're a key person of influence, everything works. Everything that you do works. So there's no point trying to copy a key person of influence because everything they do works.
Yeah.
They can stand on the street handing out flyers and thousands of people come and, engage with that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're a key person of influence. So they're in a position where everything works. When you're not a key person of influence, everything's hard work. So you have to hustle. You have to really roll up your sleeves. You got to find the edge. You got to find those little niches that work, and you've got to work really hard to get into those niches.
Yeah.
And what I see so many people doing is that they copy key people of influence and they go, oh, that works for them, so it will work for me. It's like, it won't. It works for them because they're a key person of influence. And then the other thing I see people do is refusing to be a key person of influence. They go, I want to hide behind my brand. I just want to build a brand and sell it. It's like, that's not going to work. No one's going to get engaged or excited by that. And then I see people who don't do the hard work because they say, I can't live like this. I can't live working this hard. And I go, but it will change. If you work in the right way and if you put the effort in the particular beginning phases, you will become a key person of influence at something, and then it becomes easy.
Yeah, and I totally get that because I've never run an event before, and we did one for the podcast, the 1-year anniversary, and I just thought I'd never fill it, but because I've been putting content out there, within 3 or 4 weeks, we had 150 people booked on. I had 7 key speakers. These are Dragon Den winners, millionaires. I didn't pay them to come; they just came because of my concept. I even had a celebrity cake maker. And then my friend tried to do the same. He goes, well, I'll do an event. And he did it and he sold 0 tickets. And I said, it's probably because I put it out there and people know who I am now and they like my content. You've got to do enough to know people know you, right? Yeah.
And you can't just copy what other people are doing because it might not work. It probably won't work for you if you're not a key person of influence. Key people of influence, everything works. Richard Branson's doing a hot water machine at the moment, Virgin hot water machine for your kitchen, right? Is that like a big hot product? Is that an amazing thing to get into? It doesn't matter because if you're Richard Branson, everything works.
Yeah. Not only that, he's just released his shares on public about this galactic thing.
Yeah, he's going to IPO a space company, right? So everything works.
Yeah, that's good. So, you've got to put enough work just to get enough out there. So I've got a couple of more questions I want to ask you because Daniel, it's great to have you on. I like having you on. So, with mentors yourself, obviously you very, very early on, you watched the power of mentoring just like I did. For me personally, I think the knowledge is out there now. I don't know about you, but when the first recession, we didn't have YouTube videos. People went on, like yourself, on YouTube or myself. How important is it to get the right information and the right guidance, especially in business? Because I see, in Princess Trust and people I work with, 95%, they just don't make it. And you look behind the scenes, it's the knowledge and the support. So how important is it?
Well, they don't make it because trial and error. We don't have enough we don't have enough years to do trial and error.
Yeah.
So if you want to make up everything from day one, then then you're going to have to figure out. You might spend 2 or 3 years just figuring out something. It took 1,500 years to come up with just accounting. The Medici family had a massive advantage because they came up with double entry accounting, but it took 1,500 years to get there.
Yeah.
So trial and error takes hundreds of years. So, having people around, the only reason I succeeded in my first year in business at 21 is because I did 2 intensive years. I was so lucky. It was just luck. I just got this opportunity to start to basically be employee number 3 for an experienced entrepreneur right at that moment when he was starting a new venture. And I got to see the steps. Yeah. First do this, then do this. And I got to see behind the scenes because everything looks cool and sexy and smooth running from the front, right? Yeah. If you go and see a play, if you go and see a show, it all looks fantastic at the front. Behind the scenes, there's all sorts of people running around doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Same in business. Like, for example, we used to run these training conferences where we would have 300 people who'd paid $3,000 a head for a particular niche type of training. And everyone would look at that and go, oh, wow, that's $900,000 worth of revenue right there.
Yeah.
But what they wouldn't see is that we had 12 salespeople doing 70 phone calls a day and booking appointments and doing, we had a calling team, an appointments team, a closing team. And I think it was like 12 or 15 people. When we were at that size, we had 12 or 15 people just on the phones, booking appointments, and they would make 70 phone calls a day and book 3 or 4 appointments a day. And then out of 10 appointments, there'd be 2 sales. So we had to have this marketing machine and this sales machine. So I knew all of that existed. Had I gone and started a business through trial and error, I'd probably try and do all of that myself and wonder why I'm failing. Yeah. But because from day one of my first business, I ran a $7,000 ad in the newspaper. I had a sales team waiting to take the calls. I had a salesperson ready for the phones. I had basically built everything from day one. I never ever, people say, oh, how did you go through that phase of being by yourself and being a solopreneur? I've actually never done it. Yeah. I've never ever been on my own because I understand that teams outperform individuals. So my mentor basically said, don't ever get caught in the trap of being self-employed because it's very hard to get out of it once you're in it.
Yeah.
You want to build teams from day one. Literally pre-launch, you have a sales team, you have an ops team, you have all of that ready, and you have everyone incentivized based on percentage of revenue. You get young people who want an opportunity and don't have high overheads and costs. You rope people in on the vision and you say, when we're making sales, you'll get a commission and you'll earn more than you would otherwise, right? You figure it out, you juggle it into existence. But I've always done it that way.
Yeah. Based
on mentoring.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's, why I mentor for the Prince's Trust, because they're the most vulnerable, right? They get into a business and to be honest, the Prince's Trust is very good and people give their time, but they haven't got enough entrepreneurs because we're all busy, by the way. So it's not easy. And if you get advice from an accountant, an ex-retired police person, I've seen horror stories of people wasting their parents' inheritance.
Oh, Jay, it's terrible. And the problem is accountants will probably give you the wrong advice.
Yeah.
No offense to accountants.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But when an accountant sees a business, they see the business normally, or their most successful clients are in the asset phase of the business.
Yeah.
There's the value phase and the influence phase before the asset phase.
That's right.
So if you go and talk to most successful business owners, let's say you talk to a business owner who's got millions of pounds, but they haven't analyzed the whole journey. That business owner will say things like, you've got to build a brand, you've got to build a culture. You've got to put systems in place. You've got to have CRM systems and all this sort of stuff. Bullshit. You don't need any of that stuff, right? Because if you can't make a sale, if you can't actually pick up the phone, book an appointment, make a sale. Here's a crazy little story. I had a friend of mine who's a great entrepreneur who came and stayed with me for 2 or 3 months while he was getting over a breakup. And this was several years ago, but it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to make some money while I'm in London. Can I what can I do to make some money?
Yeah.
And I said, here's a shoebox full of business cards.
Yeah.
There's probably 300 business cards that I've collected over the years from people that I've gone to networking functions with. Why don't you give them a call and just see what they want, see what they need, and see if you can help them out and all this sort of stuff. So in the space of 3 months, he made £60,000 just calling through a shoebox full of business cards of people I'd accidentally met at functions. And all he had was a shoebox of cards, a shoebox that he labeled appointments, a shoebox that he labeled opportunities, right? And he phoned the card and he just like, oh, this person's not a good opportunity, so I'll just put them over in this one called complete. So I'll just put them in the complete. So he made £60,000, over £20,000 a month, right? Just calling through, no CRM system, right? Like you don't, like a lot of accountants and a lot of experienced entrepreneurs, they'll tell you about the stuff that they're doing now because they've forgotten what got them there.
And you've got to be a practitioner. I was talking to Grant Cardone, and if you're teaching, you want to, you're practicing, I'm practicing, we're learning new things. And sometimes you get advice from someone who's like a bit older than us that did direct marketing, yellow pages, things evolve. But I know we could talk all day and the sun's just beaming here, so I don't want to, but we're going to meet up, we're going to talk about stuff anyway. And by the way, you should check out all the books. They're amazing. I've, read them myself. Daniel, where can people find it? Because look, people say to me, when you're talking to entrepreneurs, you're teaching, is there like an overlap? There's never an overlap for me. I think I promote everyone and anything, and the individual makes a decision based on that. And I've got a bus down there, which is so loud now, but
I can't even hear it.
I can't hear. So, okay. So there's all my followers there. I'm joking. But, I think it's important for people to have the opportunity. I find your stuff valuable. So what's the best place for people?
Well,
was it your seminar?
Jump on Amazon, grab the books, and is a good place to start. I've got a lot of free videos on YouTube. And one fun thing that I think is a really valuable thing is to take the Key Person of Influence Scorecard or the marketing campaign-driven enterprise scorecard. So if you just do a search called Key Person of Influence Scorecard, you'll find the Key Person of Influence Scorecard. It asks you 45 questions about your business, and it tells you whether you're on track to become more influential in your industry. And it gives you very customized, at the end of it, it gives you a customized report as to how you can improve your influence in your industry.
Great. And by the way, you can ask questions to me and I'll forward them to Daniel, but directly on Instagram. I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, at Daniel Priestley. Yeah. I'm actually a little too active on Instagram and Twitter. I enjoy it a little too much.
Yeah, it can get pretty addictive, and on Facebook you're on there as well. So look, I want to thank you for sharing, just a small part of your journey and all the stuff you're doing. You're very inspiring. Like I said, I want to get you on. I'm trying to get the best guests so that people can obviously get value from there. And you practice what you preach, which is just what I love about people I interview that are doing that.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
And we'll catch up soon.
Catch up soon.
Thank you.